Let's talk a bit about what it means when we say meeting what arises. Because it's a phrase that is used often in spiritual groups, in the spiritual, marketplace, meeting what arises. And in some ways, everybody knows what it means, but it actually ends up being somewhat of an obstacle, or a misunderstanding even, or I can't do this. I can't just meet what arises. I've been trying for 10 years and it's not working. So, to unpack a little bit, and I did have some things. Meeting what arises, it means openness, not control. It means seeing thought and sensation clearly and not getting lost in the story. And it means resting as awareness. It means, so let's look at those, yeah? It means openness, not control. Meeting what arises. Whatever is rising up within one. We have a number of choices in many ways in how we deal with what's coming up. There's anger coming up, there's grief coming up, there's fear coming up, there's a volcano arising. And usually we either turn away from these feelings, these emotions, these uprisings, we turn away from them, or we seek to push them back down again, or else in some ways we find ourselves unconsciously acting out on them. They're really the three ways of dealing with them, but all of those ultimately are about controlling what is coming up within us, because we innately or unconsciously fear what is rising up within us. This is providing we're some way down the spiritual path, or the path of looking at ourselves. If we're not on that path, then really it's just going to be an acting out or a pushing away or a denial, really. What's rising up in me, I don't want to know. I can't face it. I don't care about it. I'm acting out of that, whatever it is that's seeking to come to the light. So this is really a conversation only for people, who are willing to face, to turn towards, to look at, to see that the strategies that have been employed until now are pointless, fruitless, not going anywhere, just going around in circles, are getting worse. My life is getting worse, it's getting more intense, I'm getting more depressed, more angry, more addicted, more messed up. And something in me is calling to actually change my policy, to change my strategy, to change my way of dealing with myself. And this is a real core thing on the spiritual path that, we would love to, for it to be resolved by some idea of awakening, but really that's not what happens. What really happens is that at some point on the journey, we realize that we have to meet ourselves and we have to meet what arises, and therein lies the doorway, the possibility, the start of the transformation, but also the pain, and also the heat, and also the just the whole consequence, really, of what comes up when we choose to start to allow and to meet and even to love, to recognize, to embrace. What comes up with that, because there might be grief or anger or sorrow or fear, but they're not just isolated feelings. They come with a whole deluge. It's everything that's been backed up behind that river that is now, we're opening ourselves up to. It's the backlog in many ways that's feels so intense and feels so overwhelming. But in many ways, most of us can only deal with what arises in the moment. And so the calling is not to meet everything all at once. As if we could, I think we'd probably explode. But actually to do what one can do, to just say yes to this that's arising, to say yes to this that's arising in the now. What's happening now? Well, I'm angry about all of this, or I feel heat. It's in many ways it's best to stay with the felt sense rather than just getting too involved in the story, in the endless chain of the story, because that will go on forever, and there is never really any resolution much in the story. The resolution or the transformation really comes from the felt sense, from the energetic component. And of course the story and the energetic component are intertwined, of course. But ultimately it's the energetic component that really releases us. That's why I talk about all of this. And so this willingness that we need, this openness, this possibility to meet what's arising in this moment, just in this moment, has great benefits, because that then sets us up and allows us for the next moment maybe, and the next moment. It doesn't have to be done today. Today is just today. This moment is just this moment. Pay attention to this moment. All the other moments will take care of themselves. Wow, it's a great relief for us not to fixate on every other moment of our lives, but just to focus on this moment, because this moment is where the doorway is. So that's number one. Number two, it means seeing thought and sensation clearly. Thoughts tell stories, sensations surge in the body. That's what I just said. Don't get lost in the story, stay with the directness. Excuse me. What is arising now? What is coming up now? Can I open to it? Not can I develop a strategy of how do I open to it. But for instance, when you're going to sleep, the final thing that you do is open. Because you can't go to sleep unless there's some sort of relaxation into the body. Mind gets quieter and quieter and quieter eventually, not for everybody, not so quickly, may take a couple of days. Eventually the mind gets quieter and quieter, and there's just this falling into. So don't get involved so much in the story of the grievance of the past and the injustice that's been inflicted, and the heat and the problem with the mother or the father or the sister or the brother or the all of the various many insults that have contributed maybe to the tightening or to the fear or to the anger. They're all in there. There's nobody's denying they're in there. But if freedom, a deeper energetic freedom or release is what's wanted, or what's longed for, then you can't just stay on the level of story. You can't just stay on the level of narrative. There has to be an energetic, deeper component. And so that's where the invitation is of being with, to be with and feel what it's like. Not just think what it's like, but feel what it's like. And that shifts things, because it might be heat, or it might be cold, or it might be shaking, or it might be, you know, that in the old work we used to do back in England in the beginning of this century, which sounds a kind of weird thing to say now, we used to do a lot of energetic work with people, and a lot of shaking work, and a lot of, you know, getting it out of the system, and quite a lot of primal release work we would do with people. And it did help. It did help to activate the energetic body in a held, loving environment. And so if that works, find something. Find some of Osho's dynamic meditations in wherever, you know, wherever they're being held, the Kundalini or the dynamic meditation itself, which are all designed, you know, specifically to shake up the energetic, emotional body, and then to sit in silence and to just be still. And that something happens on the energetic level. So, you know, that's a really important one, because the tendency is these days to stay on the level of mind, and staying on the level of mind for people who've had energetic compromising experiences when they're young, which is most people, because everybody's subject to the conditioning of the parents and the schools and the religion and the culture and the peer group and the brothers and the sisters, etc., etc. So most people, to some degree or other, carry that imprint, that matrix, that constellation around, and that has been created by this energetic, in this energetic way, by this energetic quality. And so it doesn't get solved just on the level of talking or thinking or thought or philosophy or spiritual, you know, words or anything. It has to go in. There has to be this energetic component, which is why I keep saying that. And it's up to each of us to find it. So there's no point in saying, well, I don't know what to do and I can't find what to do. You know, somebody tell me where to go or what to do, but then you find somewhere and what to go or what to do and you don't like it. It's not about liking it. It's about following something innate in you, activating some inner drive, saying, damn it, I'm going to find some freedom. I need to work this out. I need to get this sorted out. And that drives you to go and search for something that has some quality of what you're searching for. It might not be the answer. There's never an answer. This is not an answer. I'm just prodding and just encouraging. You know, back in the 90s, there was no internet to go searching for. It was a mess. There were lampposts and, you know, signs in newspaper selling, whatever they're called. They're called newsagents in England. You know, billboards, not billboards, but bill stickers, you know, all of that kind of stuff. It was word of mouth. Much different. And now you can find anything you want on the internet, but don't just stay on the internet for your information. Go into somewhere, find somewhere, some body work, some cathartic release, some breath work, some primal therapy, something, if that speaks to you, so that then you develop this capacity to release energetic qualities that have some stories attached to them, meeting what arises. Meeting what arises with devotion, dedication and courage. I'm off again on the courage one, I can see. It means resting as awareness. Whatever arises is contained within awareness, never bigger than you. Meeting is intimacy with life as it is. A quiet yes without demand. To know ourselves as awareness is almost the root. To know ourselves as silent awareness, consciousness itself, is the root of how we meet what arises. We're not meeting what arises as a self meeting a self. We're meeting what arises from something bigger than what is arising, something more vast than what is arising. From the ocean of being does the wave arise. It doesn't separate from the ocean of being. It's an implicit, intrinsic part of the ocean of being, and yet it still has its individual form, shape, contour, story, pattern. Such it is with us. But we have the capacity to know ourselves as both the wave and the ocean. And when you know yourself as the ocean and not just as the wave, then you develop over time, slowly, slowly, by and by, the capacity to hold without holding, to be bigger than, to be wider than, to be more unconditional than that which is arising. And so then that which arises is allowed to be itself, to have its natural movement, because that's what the wave seeks to do, just to have its natural movement. And yet, when we were young, the natural movement of the energy was suppressed and squashed, because that's what happens in the conditioned state. No, you can't do that. You're a bad girl, boy. You should be punished for this. And that's even prior to the horrific abuse that goes on in families, and certainly used to go on in families, all sorts of mild to dramatic forms of abuse that are violations of the integrity of us. And these all create our rigidity. And so they get pushed away. But the energy is seeking, that's why it's coming up. That's why it's coming up. That's why it wants to come up. It doesn't want to come up to torture. It doesn't want to come up to recreate the horror of the past. It wants to come up so it can have its natural movement as the wave that it is. All things are waves. All actions in the phenomenal world are energetic waves. And if they're stifled somehow as they are, then they keep coming back, sometimes with renewed energy. They create disease, they create depression, anger, psychosis, a whole mess of dysfunctional actions, addictions, etc., 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 because the wave is trying to find its resolution through us. That's why this conversation is so important, because we have the capacity to be stronger, wider, more unconditional, more loving, more allowing, more compassionate than the wave that's coming up. And we say, oh, I can't, it's too much. You can. Everybody can. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes grace, and it takes a deep devotion. You don't just get on a bicycle when you're young and ride it. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And this journey, it takes a lot as well, because you're undoing things that have been tied up into tight knots for years and years and years and years. Old habits, old ways, old paths, old ruts, old grooves, old assumptions. And you're undoing those. And this is noble and beautiful, but it is tough. So that's why I wanted to try and keep this short. So now I'm on 20 minutes. And now I'm going to go. So what does it mean to meet what arises? It means openness, clarity, awareness, and a love that is bigger than the individual little problem self that we carry around. Because there is a vastness in us all. And when we start to say yes to that vastness, things start to change. So be done with the I can't, I don't know way of being. Open into something that's much more. Give yourself the possibility of the yes, I am. Yes, I'm willing. Yes, I can. Many blessings to you.